Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. It's Christmas Eve, and that makes this the penultimate episode of Atheist Advent, which, for those of you who are just joining us for the first time this month, we've been doing all month, exploring some of the greatest accomplishments of secular humanity that brought us to the modern age. And today, before we get into our holiday festivities tomorrow and the next day, I wanted to bring it all to a culmination, you might say. But first, we've been doing an actual Advent calendar on this channel, and we have our little doors, and there's, of course, it's science related. There's rocks under each door. We're doing some random geology, and I do mean random. This pack is interesting. Okay, so today we have one of these. This is what's in the number 23 door. And I don't know what the hell this is either. I suspect, based on the color, that this is it looks like it says feral coral cabocoction. I'll turn the light on so I can read the damn thing. Fossil coral cabokion, whatever that means. It says it is a fossilized coral, as you might guess, though hardened, deposited by silica-rich waters. Cool. As I've mentioned before, the descriptions are not great. So when we get done with these, we're gonna go through and like look at the whole collection, but also try to get accurate descriptions for the stones. We're not going to use the stones to destroy the stones. Lil is planning on joining us today. However, her internet is being rude. And so she'll pop in at some point whenever things calm down. Who's to say? Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. So our Bible verse to ponder for today is they will flourish. And what does flourishing mean in the context of trying to figure out the meaning of life? Is it just to be fruitful and multiply? Is it just to fill the earth? Or does it mean something more? What does good mean in this context? What does it mean to flourish? So today we're going to chart 9 distinct paths to goodness in 2 broad groups, inwardly focused and outwardly focused. We're going to draw on ideas we've built up over the last several weeks of exploring science and philosophy and human history. And at the end, we're hopefully going to weave together a new synthesis of understanding that will take us to somewhere beyond the limitations of ethical frameworks. If that sounds like a fantastical enterprise to you, please take a second to hit the buttons, subscribe, but also send this video to all and sundry. And of course, tap that like while you're down there. Also, please bear in mind that we're doing this live. So while I put a great deal of time into prepping notes, there is no script. I am a mortal capable of error. And so I may get some things wrong, but there is no way I could fully cover every possible ethical system in the limited time we have today, or even in a full semester of seminars. Stuff is going to get left out. Mistakes are going to be made in the interests of hopefully making a greater point. On the plus side, because we're live, you can interact. You can offer ideas or corrections in the moment or steer us on to a tangent. Not that such a thing ever happens here. We do this kind of thing every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So if you'd like to join in the live chat for a future show, make sure to enable notifications with the little bell button while you're clicking around. With all that said, welcome to the penultimate episode of Atheist Advent and the start of everything that comes after. This is where the intro would actually go if I ever get around to like editing these into a traditional video. Okay, so let's get started. Actually, first, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's lovely to see you, people who are here in the present, and hello future people as well. It's wonderful to see all y'all. We're seeing a lot of people. Rubik's hello says the meaning of life is people should wear more hats, and it's true. I mean, that's one of them. It's one of them. Absolutely. Kabusha. Everyone's trying to correct my pronunciation, and I don't even know what it is that we're trying to correct. It's fine. It's fine. It's all good. Yeah, it's a bold task we're taking on today, trying to solve the meaning of life in a 90-minute live stream. What could possibly go wrong? It'll be fine. All right, so let's see here. So I want to start with the how to live style of ethical systems. And the obvious place to begin is the holy life and the resulting conflicts. The core idea is that devotion to a god or gods makes you a better person and better able to actualize the will of the divine in the world, which in turn hopefully makes the world better. I included this one in the inwardly focused set because while it emphasizes devotion to a higher ideal, the method of application deals with how you live rather than what you do. Since obedience is the primary virtue, situations inevitably arise where every other value is undermined, sometimes catastrophically. Abuse in the church, for example. And now it's time for a scheduled tangent. I planned on something else here, but in real time, today is December 31st. It's the day before Christmas Eve here in the white Jesus parts of the world, and there's a lot of talk about virgins. So hold, please. This leads me to an interesting thing I learned just yesterday. Did you know that the birth of Jesus is not the only virgin birth in Christianity? Not by a long shot. You see, there are a number of roles a person who answers the call to divine service can take on. Priests and nuns are one, but another is, in some flavors of the faith, consecrated virgins. If you aren't familiar with that term, it's basically what it sounds like: a person who has opted for lifelong celibacy in order to better serve the divine. Unlike other roles, this one requires a person to be a virgin at the time of ceremonial consecration. Nuns and priests generally don't have to have never had sex. They just have to stop doing it once they ritually marry the divine being of their choice. This person must be spiritually pure, as they say, and that spiritual part is important. As previously mentioned, sexual assaults in the churches are extremely common. Statistics are often hidden by the various faith denominations, but we know the Catholic Church, for example, has over 1/3 of their current priests have at least one pending sexual misconduct allegation, and 2/3 of those stand accused of multiple rapes. It's not to say the Catholic Church is especially bad in this regard compared to other Christian denominations. Virtually every flavor of Christianity has suffered tremendous financial losses in recent years due to the nearly daily predatory attacks of spiritual leaders. The Southern Baptists, just for one example, had to sell their national headquarters just to cover the legal fees, not the damages juries awarded to their victims, just the legal fees. So frequent does this kind of harm occur. But the point isn't that churches are much more likely to hurt you or your child than any drag queen story hour ever has. It's that because of the primacy of obedience as a virtue, preventing harm practically doesn't exist as a value, and so rapes and sexual assaults are outrageously common. Because of that banality of abuse in holy culture, over the long centuries, there have been a whole lot of consecrated virgins who were violated. What happens to that holiness if their virginity, upon which their exalted status depends, is taken from them by violence? It turns out that Christianity had a big problem with SA going all the way back to the beginning, because Augustine weighed in on the subject, and centuries later, Aquinas backed him up. The official answer, theologically speaking, is that a person remains a virgin if they did not consent to the act. And this is why it is theologically incompatible for Mary to be a virgin and to have consented to carry Jesus. It's not her age or the fact she was never asked. It's that by church law, for her virgin status to remain, she could never have been given the chance to consent. But I digress. You can ponder the implications of that at your leisure. So if a consecrated virgin is raped, she remains a virgin in the eyes of the church. Among all the other harm she's dealing with, at least she doesn't lose her status as a result of something done to her. So there's that at least. However, there is not insignificant chances she might become pregnant. Studies show that the rate of pregnancy following SA is around 1 in 20, or about 5%. Not very high, but high enough that over the millennia, there are certain to be quite a lot of unwed mothers who, according to the church, are still virgins. Naturally, the churches don't make that data available, so we have no numbers to work with here. But with billions of members in one of the most rapey religions ever practiced over hundreds and hundreds of years, that's going to result in a lot of virgin births. To help cut that down, The Catholic Church, at least, has taken steps. Among other services like counseling and medical care, they also offer the survivors emergency contraception, like Plan B, otherwise known as the abortion pill. Neat trick, isn't it? The same religion that will send you to hell for using a condom and excommunicate you for getting an abortion will pay for your D&C when it helps them avoid unpleasant questions of doctrine. And this is what I mean about how every other value gets eroded in this kind of system. Everything is a luxury, all subject to being discarded if it ever comes close to conflicting with obedience. So holiness as an ethical framework is a non-starter. Like the God they claim to serve, morals can't be found. However, that does set the stage for our first secular ethical system. But oh shoot, I saw Lil try to pop in and we're still Lilless, alas. But Lil does offer words of advice. The meaning of life? Dogs. It's not a bad meaning. It could be worse. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right, we shall continue along. I have visuals now. We can add visual aids. So the first 4 ethical systems. Oh my goodness, it doesn't need to be that big. That'll do. That'll be fine. As you can see, I've got 4 set up for how you live type stuff. And then the next 4 will be a what you do type stuff. So we've got virtue ethics, existentialism, Ubuntu, and Stoicism. And I like all of these for various reasons. They all have various drawbacks. We'll explore. It's what we do. Okay, so first up, virtue ethics. That's the idea that your character is destiny. It's rooted in the teachings of Aristotle. Virtue ethics suggest that meaning isn't found in what you do, but in who you become. The core idea is we should strive for living correctly as a meaning for living well. We do this by practicing virtues like courage, temperance, wisdom, and generosity, like Lil, who just gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Lil, and congratulations to Worship, Cosmic Kyle, Caterpillar, Tertiary Tara Taylor, and Muttley Von Erich. Congratulations, congratulations. Enjoy all the fun custom emojis, which are voted on by members, by the way. When we get enough members, it opens up new emoji slots. But also all the other benefits, like members-only live streams and members-exclusive content and a bunch of other stuff. I hope you explore, I hope you enjoy, and I hope you become permanent members, because then, you know, we'll all get to have more fun together. And it does help support the channel very, very much. So thank you, Lil. I appreciate that. So yeah, generosity as a virtue, among other things. So the idea is, when we can't explain what good is, when we can't explain what flourishing is, the best we can do is try to be good and hope things work out. And that's, it gets a little weird. So in application, instead of asking, when you go to take an action, when you make a decision, when you're going to put something out there into the world, instead of saying, is this legal or is this good? You say, what kind of person will I become if I do this? Meaning comes from the lifelong project of refining your character to its highest potential. In other words, it doesn't matter if an action is externally right or wrong. It only matters how the action reflects on your character. Now, I should clarify something. When we say character today, we often mean something like integrity or trustworthiness, but that's not quite what the ancient Greeks were talking about. To Aristotle, your character is when you aren't directly controlling your actions, when you're on autopilot, you might say, and the consciousness isn't paying full attention. What choices do you program yourself to make when your subconscious is running the store? The drawbacks here are many, not the least of which is that the disregard for law runs a risk of getting you in trouble. Another is if you screw up training your subconscious in the choices it will make when you aren't paying attention, you could have a very bad time. Do something colossally stupid out of courage, for instance, and you might not get a chance to make things right later. So that brings us to our second system, and that would be existentialist ethics, or meaning through autonomy. So existentialists are the Jean-Paul Sartre. Fuck, I am so bad with names. My apologies, ghosties of philosophers past. Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir. They say the universe has no inherent meaning, or at least none that we can discern for ourselves. We can't find it, we can't distill it, we can't discover it. There just doesn't seem to be any objective meaning. So what can we determine? Well, we can determine we exist. And so existence precedes essence. You aren't born with a purpose. You arrive first and then create your purpose through your choices. So in application, this framework values authenticity above all. A meaningful life is one lived in good faith, where you take full responsibility for your freedom and refuse to let society or tradition define you. You are the architect of your own significance. And this is obviously super relatable. Because being different from how society tells you how you're supposed to be is kind of critical to a trans person's existence. You have to be willing to say, no, you are wrong. I'm different from what you think. So yeah, this one kind of, it matters. It's very important. But there are limitations to this kind of thing as well. It's, you can only get so far by being authentic. You need some substance behind that principle, right? So there are a couple of drawbacks. For one thing, this idea is prone to getting tangled in nihilism. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. People have this notion that nihilism is bleak and better avoided, that it will lead to depression, but that doesn't have to be the case. If you really believe nothing matters, then why not do good and strive for more joy in the world for yourself as well as others? Why not spread happiness? Why not? Why not do these? If nothing matters, why not? And so you can get blissful nihilism too. You can get joyful nihilism. You can get purpose-driven nihilism after a fashion. A lot of good art happens that way. But that's it's related, but it's not quite the same thing. A bigger issue here is that there isn't really much framework other than be you as hard as you can be, which is a thing I strongly recommend to everybody, but it can't be the only thing. It like the holiness thing, where obedience has primacy, it falls short in its ability to offer any practical guidance. What should you do? How should you prioritize your values in order to guide your actions through life? It doesn't, there's no help here. So while I heartily approve of the main message of being you as hard as you can, you have to know yourself really well and come to terms with your innate values and why you value those things in order to express any kind of functional ethics. And that's going to take us across the ocean to the puns coming to mind are truly awful. I'm just going to stick on ocean for a second and say, while we're traveling, we'll take a quick break. Hey folks, I've been working hard on my health, and so far I've lost over 140 pounds. A huge part of good health is hydration. That's why I'm thrilled to partner with Epic Water Filters. Check this out. Not only can you say goodbye to expensive bottled water, but these filters are made in the US, so no tariffs, and they're made to fit your life. From these lovely pitchers I can fill from, to sink units, to portable filters that fit in your reusable bottle. With Epic, I can refill from nature's water sources and not have to worry about bacteria and whatnot. But also, send back a used filter to be responsibly recycled, and they'll send you a free replacement, saving you and the earth even more. Want to save a ton of money, be healthier, and build a better world? Head to epicwaterfilters.com and enter code EMBER15 at checkout for 15% off. Don't settle for random water. Upgrade to Epic. All right. You know I have to get that in somewhere during the morning shows. Oh, okay. So we're going across the ocean or the Mediterranean Sea, depending on your perspective, to Africa. You know, the cradle of all humankind, where in Southern Africa, they have a philosophy that you've probably guessed from the visual, Ubuntu, which it comes from this idea of I am because we are. And I really like this idea. It's very cool because it offers a communal framework for meaning in life. Now, we understand community is important for continuing to live. It's how we got here. It's how we survive. It's how we grow together. It's how we discover science and medicine and so forth. But is living the same as meaning? We can survive, we can even thrive, we can even flourish under some definitions, but does it include meaning? So what if we take that community aspect that is so necessary for human survival and we try to distill meaning from that? So the idea is that a person becomes a person through other people, the recognition of others, the connection with others. And we see this reflected in our internal lives. Many of our emotions are keyed to our sense of connection with others. Grief is when a connection is broken. It's that unrequited emotion just floating off into nothing now because there's no one there to reciprocate. So it's rough. But we know we experience that kind of phenomenon. Our humanity, then, in addition to our emotions and the way we perceive the world, the way we exist within the world, is tied to the humanity of those around you. This is both a plus and a minus. It can inspire us to want to do good, whatever that might mean, to help others, to make life better for others so that others will like us more, so that things will be better for the people we care about. There's a bunch of good reasons to do it, a bunch of valid, rational reasons to do it. But it also goes to the idea of recognition, because if there's no one around seeing you, do you feel like you're really there? Like if you live on a deserted island, perhaps you might be less inclined to clean under your nails every day. For instance, certain other habits might go out the window as well because you're no longer surrounded by a culture that values those, and you don't have that connection enforcing your behavior. But on the flip side, sometimes it can keep you from getting too far ahead. For instance, Newton, while he did some batshit crazy stuff, like, drinking mercury, he had a few pretty brilliant ideas. And some of them were only successful because they were recognized as brilliant by other people. His Principia Mathematica, for example. Would it have been as brilliant if no one had read it? Or if other people had read it, but no one understood it? I mean, the knowledge in it is the same, but if there's no recognition from other humans, then what good does it do? If there's no utility for other humans, then what good does it do? And so there is something to be said for that. So in this framework, meaning is found in relationality, contributing to the community, practicing empathy, and maintaining social harmony. In this view, a life lived in isolation, no matter how successful, lacks meaning because it lacks connection. Of course, there are drawbacks. The value of the individual can be lost in the ideal of the whole. You might, for example, save your village through an act of bravery, thinking you'll live on through them. We see this in evolutionary systems. We see this in evolutionary theory, in fact. What possible evolutionary advantage could there be in self-sacrifice, in acts of altruism, in the homosexuality? If evolution is keyed on successful reproduction, then how can homosexuality be natural? How can trans people exist? Why do intersex people keep popping up so frequently? Shouldn't evolution have purified all of that out by now? But in point of fact, there are considerable advantages to having members within your population who specifically do not reproduce, because they can help in other ways without necessarily being motivated by that drive to fight over mates and invest all the resources into raising offspring. For one thing, they can help raise other offspring. For another, they can defend the village or whatever without necessarily compromising anybody's genetic lineage. And if you want to get into that selfish gene hypothesis, their genes are still passed on. Remember, their relatives have the same genes as them. Their cousins have most of the same genes as them. Their society has all of the same genes as them because that's where their genes came from. So helping others, even if you don't reproduce, does help your genes get passed on. But in this case, because a person, this act of bravery person, is so focused on how they live or die rather than what you actually enact in the world, they risk not actually accomplishing that goal, because the goal isn't the goal. Doing things the right way is the goal, and trusting that the universe is fair, and so good will follow from your good deeds. This is why I often caution people not to confuse the plan for the goal. This system is a plan hoping to hit a goal by accident. I really like this system. I can't stress that enough. And there's a lot of value here, but that's why I feel the need to critique it extra hard, lest my bias make it seem like it's all sunshine and rainbows in this philosophy. Sapphire says the answer, like, am I a joke to you? Sometimes we do make movies about ants. It's true. It's true. Oh, poor little auntie buggers. Who knew? Okay. Stoicism. So this one, it's a trip. All right, let's do it. Meaning through alignment. The Stoics were ancient Greek and Roman philosophers, as you're probably familiar with, founded by Zeno, promoted by Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and so forth. They believed that true happiness comes from living a virtuous life in harmony with nature and reason, focusing on self-control, accepting what's beyond our control, which goes into the dichotomy of control, what you can control and what you can't. It's a whole thing. And understanding that virtues like wisdom, justice, courage, temperance are the only true good, or at least the effective goods, because anything else is outside of mortal control. And that makes external things like wealth or even health indifferent. They don't matter in their own right. They're only useful as tools to actualize the virtues. The goal here is to aim at inner peace by correcting false judgments that cause destructive emotions, by using logic, physics, and ethics to guide them toward a rational, universally connected life. So to them, what is good? What is the good? How do we flourish? How do we succeed? And to them, it's focus on what is within our control, discard the rest, and find peace in that purpose. We do see a lot of leftovers of this in modern culture. For example, the Serenity Prayer. Give me the strength to change what I can, the serenity to accept what I cannot, and the wisdom to tell the difference. Now, it kind of goes without saying that while all of these are supposed to be ethical systems that describe how you are supposed to live, they just kind of vaguely gesture at these virtues of wisdom and temperance and justice and courage, but they don't show you how to incorporate them. They just say, here's a value, do that. You know, they're not a very good guide in that respect. It's more just straight up philosophy insofar as it's like, hey, I have a fun idea. Let's think about it for a while. But it doesn't actually guide action. You know, it doesn't tell you what to do, which makes them somewhat less useful in that regard. So the core idea for Stoicism is live in accord with nature, which is to say, use your reason. Use your reason, Leonidas, and focus only on your own thoughts and actions. Obviously, there's a drawback. You've got big old blinders on. You're only focusing on your own thoughts and actions. We're back to the same drawback as virtue ethics. You're so preoccupied with what you're doing and what that says about you, you're not paying any attention to the effects your choices are having in the world. Now, of course, nobody is not paying any attention. But if the focus is inward, the outward effects are secondary at best. So, in application, meaning is found in integrity, even in the worst circumstances. You retain what Viktor Frankl called the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose your attitude. A meaningful life is one where you act with excellence, regardless of the outcome. So it doesn't matter if you succeed or fail. To be successful, you're acting correctly and hoping for the best, which means the main drawback here is that you may well end up dying courageously, heroically, and in vain, because dying with integrity matters more than living without it, even if you go on to achieve a lasting goal. So that just about does it for the outward focused frameworks, which is, it's a trip. Now I'm going to take a little intermission and we're going to explore precisely what happens when we just go off the rails and don't use any framework at all, apparently.
I have a problem with this stuff being normalized across the spectrum, and specifically, like, why push this on kids? Why introduce this to kids?
I am a depraved wretch. I am a great sinner. I'm a worm, completely undeserving of any love or any grace. I'm nothing. I'm nothing.
You're incapable of being a good person. You're an evil person. You're a terrible person. At the core fabric of who you are. That's why we need laws. We need laws because we're bad people. All of us are bad people.
You can't spell Pride Month without demon. PRIDEMONTH.
If we don't know who the women are, because they are just people, then we won't be able to pull the women up to equality with men.
We have to try to limit the harm. And that means reducing or keeping down the number of people who transition. And that's for two reasons. One of them is that every one of those people is a person who's been damaged. But the second one is every one of those people is basically, a huge problem to a sane world.
Transgenderism must be eradicated.
The LGBT, transgender, grooming our children's minds is a national security threat. We need to hold people for treason, start having some public hearings, and start executing people.
I will use whatever gives me victory. I don't care about the truth, and I don't care about the law. I care about one thing: the control.
but then they rigged the election, and now we won, so I'm going to be your president. Then what happened is they rigged the election, and I became president, so that was a good thing.
I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president, but I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian.
I just want to say I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we're going as a nation. We're killing all the right people and we're cutting your taxes.
It was actually a tremendous blessing to these children for them to be killed and go to heaven and be with God.
We've been hoodwinked. We've been taken in by an ideology crafted by creeps and then pushed on children.
Stop letting people pressure you into thinking.
If they die, they die.
I want to be ignorant, honestly.
Being a Christian doesn't exclude us from experiencing spiritual dryness.
We're bad people. All of us are bad people.
And if you find yourself experiencing spiritual dryness, of course, head on over to epicwaterfilters.com and use code EMBER15 for 15% off. A couple of notes on that. The first is that a lot of those people consider themselves to be Stoics, but they're not, because they're not considering wealth and power to be an unimportant but sometimes useful tool for achieving what might be considered a reasonable, rational goal. As Mark said in that clip, they only care about the control. That's it. Having power. There's no purpose for it beyond that. It isn't a step to accomplishing something. It is the end unto itself. They're fucking children. But I digress. William Lane Craig. I want to, because my rant earlier was inspired by Godless Engineer, John Gleason, friend of the community, who has been talking about the Virgin Mary a lot recently. Now I want to give a shout out to his co-host on last night's shows, the Bible Guy, who, among other things, reminded us that Bill Craig is projecting his own ideas onto the Bible there when he's talking about how the children killed in the floods and the genocides and all the various other times God has either ordered or murdered children himself, that it's a tremendous blessing for them because they get to go to heaven and be with God. Well, for one thing, the Bible doesn't say that. He's just adding that on himself. And the second and more important thing is that at the time, in those stories in the Old Testament, and it is still true for people who believe the Jewish Old Testament, there isn't a heaven. There's the concept of that eternal reward doesn't exist. It's either nothing or you go to Sheol or whatever the case may be. But this concept of heaven is entirely New Testament. And for even if you believe the New Testament is true and that heaven retroactively applies to everyone who died before Jesus came along and all that got made up, you still have the problem of for thousands of years, they were in Sheol or in hell. And again, most of the people who believe those stories don't believe in Christian heaven. So that's kind of more monstrous the way Bill puts it, but I digress. Okay. I also wanted to disambiguate a thing. Adrian said earlier, reason and duty, wouldn't that depend on the reason and the supposed duty you're trying to accomplish? So this is one of those situations where we have a word that means two different things. And we need to be clear about which one it is. When I say reason in this context, it means the ability to reason things out, the ability to figure things out, the ability to think things through and use rational processes. When we say a person needs a reason, they often mean something you can articulate. What is the reason you did that thing? Like, for example, the reason I pick up my coffee cup is because I'm thirsty and want my coffee. or my water bottle because I want some epic water because I'm thirsty. That's a reason, but that's sort of like a substitution sort of thing, because the words have the same root because they kind of mean the same thing, but they're used in different ways. The reason I articulate is more of a motive, but it's also data to help you reason through why I did what I did, if that makes sense. So it's not so much that it depends on the reason. It depends on whether they're using reason in order to come to a rational conclusion. And also, I do want to point out, humans are emotional beings. We make a pretense to rationality, but the vast majority of us make decisions emotionally and then justify it after the fact with something resembling reason, but we didn't actually use the reason in the first place. We didn't actually use the logical, rational processes in the first place. And that's a whole topic unto itself. All right, and I was trying to catch up with the rest of the chat during the break, but I didn't want to get too far off of that comment because it's important to point out there is a difference between having a reason and using your reason, you know? Let's see. I'm scrolling through and I see Jester saying, uh-oh, hello, and later people. Like, is it just a Jester drive-by? It's peculiar. It's peculiar. I'm passing through rapidly. I don't know why. I feel like I'm in such a hurry. Yeah. Brent says, "You are not kidding. These are the weird ones. Can we not spend the rest of the show?" No, we're not going to spend the rest of the show. 2 parts. The first 4, the second 4. We're on to the second 4 now. So hopefully you don't mean the second 4. But that won't be the rest of the show either. Adrian says, "Yeah, I saw that show yesterday on the line, not all of it, but towards the back." Yeah, it was near the end of yesterday's show. What is it? Skep Talk, that had both GE and Bible Guy on there. Trying to catch up. Almost there. Do you enjoy the hold music while I'm reading as quickly as I can? Okay, I think we're good. We're probably good. We might be good. It'll be fine. Or something. All right. The outcome-focused frameworks. Instead of focusing so much on ourselves, how do we live and just hope the cards fall where they may? What can we do focused outward? Now, I do want to make clear at the outset, I lived most of my life this way. Putting yourself second based on outcomes, based on the greater good, which is going to be our first one. Things like this. It's very damaging. It's not good for your long-term health or happiness, and it limits your ability to help with the things you care about, like the greater good. Long-term, you can burn yourself out that way. Your first duty has to be to take care of you, and that's for a utilitarian reason. You need you in order to do anything in the world. Nothing else works if you don't have your you to do things with. You know? All right. So that said, utilitarianism, what we might call the greater good. This is the let's say it's Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill's version, which is more modern, but it's also kind of clearer than what the Greeks came up with. The basic idea is you maximize utility, which is usually defined as the happiness or the absence of suffering. And this is, what do we mean by maximizing happiness? Increasing joy in the world, increasing good in the world, or at least reducing suffering in the world. As you can see from the beginning, we're doing substitutions. What is the meaning of life? Well, what is the meaning of good? And how do we have a good life? What does it mean to have a good life? And so we're substituting ideas for other ideas. And now we've come to, well, now we're just aiming at increasing happiness and reducing suffering. And a lot of people still use that in their definitions of flourishing today. Increase happiness and minimizing suffering. It's a utilitarian definition. And to be clear, we all use utilitarianism to some extent. A lot of our words we use in a utilitarian fashion for quick and easy communication. It serves a higher priority. It maximizes the good that it's intended to do. It's a pretty neat trick, but I digress. So this is the most outcome-based framework because of that. But what do we mean by that? Should we be running around, say, for example, performing eye surgeries on every individual blind person we come across? Should we be doing corneal replacements on blind people, like Mr. Beast famously did at the start of the year, I think? Maybe it was earlier than that. It's not important. But doing all these surgeries one by one by one, it can add up to a big difference. But would it be better to do that? Or would it be better to make environmental conditions suck less so that fewer people go blind in the first place? Which is the greater good? And does serving the greater good mean we should ignore the lesser good? Sometimes, perhaps, could it be the greater good to pursue the lesser good, since everyone else is pursuing the greater good? So to maximize flourishing or to minimize suffering, doing something other than chasing the same red dragon, as it were, is the most effective way. There's a lot to that. Deviant says to check my DMs. I will do it because it's you asking. But normally, just to be clear, I will not interrupt a show to check a DM. So let's see what we've got here. Perhaps later. I want to get through this list. It's a question, and it's fine. But yeah, if there's time afterwards for chat, then perhaps. Okay. So back to my notes. Right. So the meaning in life, in this case, for utilitarianism, is focusing on the greater good, which means that meaning is one that adds the most to the total happiness of the world, or, reduces suffering, which also increases the net total happiness of the world. So you find purpose in this system by making choices that benefit the greatest number of people. Mostly, depending on how you do your calculus, depending on how you do your computation, you may find yourself with a situation where you could make one person 1,000 times happier, or you could make 100 people twice as happy, right? So sometimes, rare circumstance, but sometimes you'll end up with a situation where helping one person does increase the total happiness more than the good of the many. It's hard to say. So you're trying to benefit the greatest number of people in general, but in practice, a utilitarian might choose a high-paying career that they don't love in order to generate more money so they can donate a bunch of their pay in order to homeless or pay for blind people surgeries or whatever the case may be, so they can do more good. They're using their effort to do good by reallocating their resources. Like maybe they're not good at doing eyeball surgeries, but they can generate the financial resources to help more eyeball surgeries happen, for example. So pluses and minuses. We've already discussed some of the drawbacks as we went along. Like there's that inclination to ignore self, because you're so focused outwardly, you're so focused on doing the most good, so you may not remember to take care of your own health. Like the Stoics, your health isn't necessarily a priority, but you need your health to keep working at the job in the example so you can generate the money so you can donate it, right? Like you have to remember, while we need to stay focused on the goal, we also need a workable plan that gets us to the goal. if your plan is just hope for the best, the odds of achieving the goal are somewhat diminished. So balance in all things, I suppose. Our second system outwardly facing is effective altruism, which you might call data-driven meaning. Remember, the point is we're trying to find meaning in life in order to live a good life. So a modern evolution of utilitarianism, effective altruism. You might recognize this from a few different songs by like Pete Seeger, for example, or perhaps Ayn Rand's version of libertarianism. It's I know altruism and Ayn Rand don't seem to go together, but bear with me here. So the idea is that you use your reason to determine how to benefit others as much as possible. And you take your resources, your time and your money, and you solve the world's biggest problems. You focus on which problems are the biggest, and you try to chip away at them and hopefully break them down. And I know this seems like we're getting further and further from Ayn Rand here. And actually it is, because that's the next system. This is what I get for using notes. But I can make a case for a crossover here. We'll get to it in a second. Place your bets. Can I make the crossover work? So you're trying to solve the problems, and meaning comes from measurable impact. It's not just about doing good or being good, but about getting good done. It's doing the most good possible, not necessarily for the most people, but getting the most change. And it turns the quest for meaning into a rigorous intellectual challenge. So you're actually finding meaning by creating difference. It's one of the easiest ones to see. It's what doctors see. It's what construction workers see. It's the physical changes you see in the world. Whenever you struggle with the idea of whether you have meaning in your life, you can just look at the tangible things you've done and say, look, I have done things. I have left a mark upon history. Of course my life has meaning. What is that meaning? What's the meaning of that meaning? Well, that gets philosophical, but at least you've got a practical anchor in reality to show you were here. And that's better than a lot of people have. So that's something. Now, if I were to try to tie this to Ayn Rand, I might say because actualization of the individual is the primary virtue, then making change in the world around you is the ultimate in self-actualization. Because once you get over all your self-indulgent bullshit, all that's left, going back to Ubuntu and the communal idea, is what other people think of you. And the best way to control that is to leave an indelible mark on history by doing something that fucking matters. I told you I could do it. Okay. Ethical egoism. We're actually getting a little bit ahead here, so hooray. Ethical egoism. Personal flourishing as the outcome. Personal flourishing. So while this often gets conceptualized as selfishness, it's my speech impediment sneaking out again. Ethical egoism, popularized by Ayn Rand's books, focuses on and Ayn Rand's version isn't exactly ethical, but never mind. But we're focused on the long-term positive outcomes for the individual. While the perspective is necessarily self-centered, the focus is on outcomes. It's not about how you live, it's about what you do and the results you generate. The goal, of course, is to achieve one's own long-term interests and rational happiness. Perhaps what makes you rationally happy is seeing a better world where your children will thrive and prosper and won't have to, fight bigots constantly to be who they are, or won't have to struggle to breathe in a toxic wasteland. If that's what makes you happy, then that's a thing you should try to pursue under ethical egoism. So meaning is found in achievement. It's having had done things. It's one of the reasons I don't like Ayn Rand's philosophy, and I should be honest about this, is that it's got that death cult flavor to it. It claims to be about the self, but it's so inwardly focused that it's only about physicality. It's only about who has the biggest collection of bones, right? Who has genocided the most people and grown the biggest kingdom and all this stuff. And it's all past focused. It's what have you done, not what are you doing or what will you do next. It's anti-life, and that bugs me. But there is still some value in the philosophical underpinnings. So you find your meaning and achievement in self-actualization. And so you could argue that your moral duty is to pursue your own excellence. And there is something there. It's similar to virtue ethics in that you have a duty to pursue excellence. However, in this case, the idea is that society is made of individuals all pursuing their own rational happiness will naturally be more productive and innovative. To some extent, people who are self-motivated by self-interest will tend to accomplish more. But it's hard to have a civilization when you have everybody pulling in different directions instead of all pulling together. You have to have some self-interest, but you also have to have some understanding that society is necessarily a community effort. So there's limits. And of course, this is pure philosophy, right? To make this work in the real world, we have to bear in mind Machiavelli exists, which is to say there are no ethical rules. There are no moral guidelines. There is only the goal, and whatever you need to do to achieve the goal is valid. The ends justify the means. And that fits very neatly within ethical egoism, even though it becomes increasingly more unethical the more Machiavelli you add. So as long as no one in your society has read the works of Machiavelli or is Machiavelli, which would also fall into this ethical paradigm, then maybe you can get some productivity, but I don't think you can make a society of just people with this perspective, as much as the libertarians might want to. And number 4, pragmatism. Whatever works. The fundament of liberalism. Whatever works for progress. So John Dewey, William James, their popularized version of modern pragmatism views this as an ethical tool for solving human problems. Again, it's outwardly focused. It's what are we doing in the world? So the goal is to produce outcomes that improve the human condition and allow society to function more harmoniously. So meaning-wise, you're trying to problem solve and inspire growth in whether it's personal growth or population growth or forest growth, whatever the case may be, you're trying to solve the problems and allow growth to happen. That's your flourishing. So instead of looking for eternal truths, you're just looking for practical solutions to make things work, to make life better for yourself and your community in the here and now. Also, pluses and minuses. Effectively, one could say that this system argues for having no system. You have no overriding value except achieving your goal effectively, right? It's solve the problem. It's help grow. It's whatever you personally care about. Focus your efforts on whatever works, whatever it takes to get that job done. And that can lead to a bit of a problem because sometimes you're going to have conflicting values. For example, you may have an immediate goal of, say, trying to help a survivor achieve justice, right? But you have another goal of serving truth because you feel as though that would be a good tool for solving other problems, like, dispelling some of the oppressive elements in our culture. The liars in power can't hold on to power when truth is used against them. But if you run into a situation where your desire to help this one person get justice, get revenge, conflicts with your desire to advance the purposes of truth for broader social liberation, for freedom for everyone, then you have to decide what it is you want to do in the moment. And this is why we need ethical systems. This is what we use them for, is to understand our values and our priorities, especially when they come into conflict. Now, it seems quite obvious to me, but maybe I'm reasoning differently than another person would, that if you have to discard the truth in order to get justice, is it really justice or is it just revenge? Because if what's being perpetrated is not the truth, then it's not actually pragmatic to try to pursue that revenge, is it? If you know, you know. So all of these systems, they have their pluses and minuses. Is flourishing an ongoing process or an outcome? Must it be one or the other? Here's a plot twist. And the reason I said I wanted to get through these before we entertain like discussion. In the novel Divergent, the character Triss finds herself in a world where everyone joins a group where one value, one ethical framework is considered paramount. And for all of the novel's flaws, one thing it excels at is highlighting the tremendous drawbacks of trying to live that way. As secular people, we have the lived experience to know that we as a society are stronger together, and that strength comes from diversity, not conformity. 8 embers is not nearly as valuable as 1 Ember, 1 Ryan, 1 Lel, 1 Kelly, 1 Maya, 1 Bree, 1 Jess, 1 AJ, 1 Deviant Outcast, one of each of you out there watching this. More of me is just more me's, but each of us has a different perspective, a different experience, a different take, a different outlook, and will come to different solutions for problems. Something that's intractable to me might be super obviously solved by Adrian Belgrave. Something that Deviant can't figure out might be child's play to Brent A. Diversity is our strength. And so trying to force everyone to fit into a single box that may serve one person's purpose, it doesn't serve all of us. It doesn't serve our greater interests. So the same thing is true at the level of the individual. Society isn't served by monoculture. Internally, there's no reason you have to pick just one ethical system and live by that alone. To paraphrase Triss from the books, and build community and be rational about it. If you really think about it, I suspect you'll find that all of these goals aren't just compatible with the others, they require all the others. This religious leftover of thinking there is one best way to live, even one right way, that doesn't help you or society. It limits you. Now, I'm not saying discard all your values and be anarchists. I'm saying don't be dogmatic. Religion has taught us that this is counterproductive to flourishing and often quite harmful. Like I said at the beginning, putting obedience to dogma as your primary value, it takes you to bad places. Instead, think about your values. Are they your values? Or did you internalize what somebody else told you? If you value human life, why? If you value the environment, why? When these are in conflict, which one wins? Why? Is freedom more important than life? Would you give your life to protect the freedom of others? This is the duty we ask members of our military to take up. This is a virtue in others. Is it a duty you would uphold yourself? Should free speech take precedence over harm? Or is truly free speech only possible in a society where minimizing harm is a higher order priority? Ethical frameworks can get us a lot farther than religious obedience, but subscribing to one is still abdicating your reason to someone else's opinions. The single most important thing for a skeptic to do is to ask what you believe and why. What do you believe? Why? Based on those things, what changes would you like to help create in this world, and what priorities will help you get there? And just like that, you found your meaning in life. Make it a good one. Behold, we've done it. And on top of that, we actually did. Think about what we just did there. I told you to search your feelings. You know this to be true. Little Ball Trade sends a super chat for $10. Thank you, Lil. And Lil says, there might be only one of you, but knowing you makes my world so much better. Also, Dog-Shaped Kip says hi. Treats for Dog-Shaped Kip. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see. I think. Yeah, Adrian says diversity is our strength. Absolutely. And we do still have a little bit of time, so I will send Deviant the thingy that she asked for, and we can discuss a bit. It'll be neat. Probably. In the meantime, what are your all's thoughts? Yeah, W for skepticism, because that's what we do, is we challenge our thoughts, we challenge our own preconceptions, you know? We're talking, okay, I see people are talking about capitalism. See, I get all ranty. I get, you can tell I know there's a stereotype in our group about former preachers and shit. Because so many former pastors have gone in a certain way, and it's unpleasant. Now, the good news is I was never actually a pastor. I never had my own church or like a dedicated congregation. I was more like a, what do you call them? A wandering minstrel of ministry, so to speak. I performed weddings when asked. I performed other services when asked. For a long time, it was for LGBT people because traditional churches wouldn't help them with anything. Oh, it's a sin. I can't go near your wedding. Whatever. But not always. Sometimes it was, friends who, for other reasons, didn't want to be affiliated with the traditional churches because of their reputation, which is understandable as well. Prior to that, I was a chaplain in the U.S. Navy, but I wasn't ever a pastor per se. So I can get a little bit preachy sometimes, but it's not quite the same as that sermonizing we get from so many of the ex-pastors that breeze through our community, collect a bunch of money, and then suddenly discover they're still a Christian after all, for example. Deviant, hello. How are you?
Dude, can you hear me fine?
I can.
Awesome. There was
5x5.
Just when I switched over to Restream, the sound became it started to play from, not from the computer or the speakers to the computer, but the screen itself, and it was all choppy and messed up, and I was like, oh no, because I know that Restream always wants to change so that sound comes through my headphones, but the mic goes through the computer, and it's a whole thing. As you tend to say, I just got this. Oh my goodness, Deviant, you're imitating Ember right now so much. It's a whole thing.
I mean, you could do worse, I suppose. Like
Much
I just
worse.
said, we need you to be deviant, but
Yes.
there are some elements of Ember that I think, anyway, everyone could benefit with. Hats,
I
for
think so too.
example. How fucking cool are hats?
Right? Oh, you haven't. I have to send you on Discord an image of me wearing the hat that Soot got for me, because it's really neat. It's a real like archaeologist hat.
Oh, yay. Archaeologist.
Yay.
Those are cool too. Just remember to
Yeah.
bring your rock hammer. There's a couple of people
Yes.
asking. Theo is asking, what's your preferred model or mix of them, Ember? And Adrian, similar question. Out of these 8, which would you fall under? I can answer both. That whole postscript I did, and maybe this was before I actually made that little mini sermon. I don't subscribe to any one of them. I see value in some of them, and I guess I'm more of, I don't know if there's a term for what I am. Pirate, for lack of a better term. I take the things that are useful and I discard the rest. Now, what means useful? To me, that's going to vary a little bit. But ultimately, I don't like the idea of a system at all. It's still trying to take your thinking and build shortcuts and put it into boxes. I much prefer to deal with the values directly. For instance, human life, top priority. Human freedom and safety, next priority, right? So like free speech, all other rights, human rights have to have human rights as a concept as a higher priority, because if you try to put any specific right ahead of human rights generally, then you undermine human rights, and so you undermine that right too, because it is part of a subset. So human rights has to take priority over free speech. That necessarily means that speech is going to be limited to some extent, the extent necessary to protect human rights, but you have to do that, because the other way around produces paradoxes that collapse the whole system. And this is sort of what I mean, is dealing with the ethics directly and then thinking through the consequences of how they interact. What matters to me and why it matters to me. You see what I mean? So I suppose you might say, I kind of eschew all the systems. I think it's a bad idea to have a system, because it's still a subscription to something. It's still outsourcing your thinking to someone else's opinions. Take under advisement what they have to say, but don't subscribe to it. At least that's my purview. I'm not saying anyone should subscribe to my opinions either, because then we'd have emberism, which would be entirely counterproductive to my point.
So I could not agree more with you. I think, and so I have friends, IRL friends, who genuinely think that I am a contrarian and someone who favors the status quo, which is wholeheartedly wrong. Yes, I am a bit of a contrarian in the way that I always, even whether I say it out loud or not, I always question. I question myself to the point where I can't even interact.
Contrarianism is disagreeing with a person for the purpose of disagreeing. Now, there is valid philosophical value in that. It's almost Socratic. anytime somebody makes a claim, see, I'm doing it right now. I'm saying something opposed to what you said for the purpose of further exploring the idea. That's contrarianism.
Yes.
Where skepticism is just saying, well, why though? You know?
Yeah. I think I utilize contrarianism as an act of skepticism in the way that, like, I purposefully check myself and the world around me and other people for, but where are the loopholes in this argument? What would you say if, let's say I'm talking to someone who is like a Kent Hovind type person. I check, okay, here they would point to this thing, and it's not just the arguments, but I go through the meaning of words, and so it is kind of an issue for me because it does. I find myself oftentimes like hyper focus on, let's say I'm writing a comment or something, and I think, okay, but they could think I mean this, they could think I mean that, they could point to the other meaning, and I feel the need to fill all those possible holes. But it also makes me always think through my own arguments in a way that I don't just blurt things out. Not to say that I don't blurt things out.
No, that never happened.
No,
Although
never.
I want you to appreciate my restraint when you said fill all possible holes.
Yes. I did notice. No, but my point is that the reason that the friends I was referencing think I'm a contrarian, I think is partially because they don't fully know what the contrarian is.
In fact, we've had a couple of people ask, so would you mind explaining what that is for people who aren't familiar with the term?
I think you said it quite well recently. A contrarian is someone who takes the opposite for, not for the sake of a true stance. Like, I do not truly agree. A contrarian doesn't really have a solid moral or ethical foundation. They argue whatever point you are not presenting to them.
Well, I have to take issue with that. I have to push
Okay.
back on that because
Okay.
there is a valid moral duty, if you will, to confront people, play devil's advocate if you have to, but make people address why they believe what they believe. Challenge them on it. Say what, but does this hold up? Even if it's not the oppositional position isn't one. For example, I did a debate a year or two ago against B.S. Lewis, right? And, you know, he and I broadly agree on theological matters, but I had to argue the position that Jesus was, in fact, the real Messiah. And I ended up winning that debate by being a contrarian asshole about several points.
Yes. So I think there's
I just did it again.
Yeah,
I was contrarian to deviant to illustrate there is a moral purpose to it. There's value to it anyway.
I think that the way I present it is more a person who has that as, so I have come across, I don't know if you are familiar with a guy on YouTube who goes by the name C Science.
If it's the person I think it is, then not familiar. I've encountered the person a few times a few years ago, but not so much recently.
Yeah, no, I have been on panels with him and so forth, and he is very much, he's like a mixture of a troll and a contrarian. Like, he does not really have any firm beliefs. Yeah, known troll, absolutely. But yeah, no, I think that as soon, I'm not a contrarianist. I utilize contrarianism as you do, Amber, but I am I have a very hard time with authorities. I put authorities to a very, very high level of scrutiny and responsibility, because it's my firm belief that the more influence and power that you have, the more you're subjected to take responsibility for whatever your actions bring. Which is why I oftentimes argue for bringing back the dunce cap. Not for children, because that's just plain evil. There is no good will ever come out of bullying a child like that.
Yes,
But
don't
for,
bully children.
no. If you do, I will rip your throats out. And it will be bloody and messy, and I'm a vegetarian, so don't put me through that, please.
Now, I have to ask, being a vegetarian, presumably at least partially for ethical reasons, and
Yes.
committing murder to defend children, valid ethically, would you then have an ethical duty to make use of the corpses? Because if you must kill an animal,
Yeah.
would you then not have to use the result of that action?
Possibly yes. To be like to be consequential in the use of that ethics. Yeah. So at the same time, though, when I'm not. Here's the thing. I am a vegetarian, and it's based on ethics. But it's not so much the killing, because I do believe there is, for instance, humans are, what's the word? Alla äter. Omnivores.
Okay.
We're omnivores. So I don't think it's wrong to hunt. Like if I look at early man, early humanity hunting, I don't see that as wrong. What I do think is wrong is the way that we use other living beings in an industrialized way, and we treat them with less care and respect than we do a new iPhone. And that I take issue with. I take issue with these slaughterhouses where animals are standing in the blood of the animals before them. They get stressed out. They feel pain. I disagree with the way that we treat chickens in the geflügel.
Little things as cogs in machinery. Like they're not machines,
Exactly.
they're living things. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's one of my bigger issues with capitalism. I actually don't mind this practice of aristocratic people making a big pretense of how much bullshit they own and how many yachts they have or whatever the case. Like if that's what makes them happy, it doesn't actually affect other people. I don't really care. It's the way they mistreat humans, pretending they're just cogs in the machine and have no feelings and no capacity to suffer. It's the same sort of issue.
And that's kind of fun because the way I came about becoming I originally I was a vegan. I went from regular diet, kind of, because I had very severe anorexia at the time, but eating meat and fish and everything, to a vegan. Most people go usual everyday omnivore diet to vegetarian to vegan, but I went the other way. And then I switched to vegetarian, so I eat egg and milk products because of my anorexia, to overcome that fully, and it worked. I have not had a relapse since then. And that's a utilitarian way of looking at it, where I go, yes, I'm not fully following my own my own criteria that I have set up for why I'm doing this, but I'm if I struggle to if I struggle through anorexia, and because that takes all everything there, you have no energy, no ability to reason, or you can't help anyone. So if and also anorexia is from all the mental conditions, psychological diagnosis that you can have, anorexia is the highest when it comes to death. And it's not just, sure, people with anorexia commit suicide at times, but
I presume you mean death as a consequence of the malnutrition that results, rather than
yes,
intentional action, because
yes,
that's a separate category.
exactly, and it's a very high percentage. Actually, I can't remember the stats on the top off the top of my head, but it's worryingly high. So my thought process went, okay, if my life is taken up by this issue, this illness, then I don't have the energy to help anyone. So what's then the purpose? If I'm alive and can focus more on the world around me, and that includes all animal and the environment, then I can do more good rather than sitting at home and saving a few chickens, but not having the ability to even help my closest friends.
Yeah, it sucks
So
that whether you believe it's evolution or you believe in a god or gods or whatever the case may be, it sucks that we happen to arrive in this universe in bodies that require destroying other living things for their own fuel. That really
exactly,
sucks, but
yeah,
it's what we have, and for the time
yeah,
being, we're stuck with it. So we can
exactly.
go about it in the most ethical way possible. In fact, what you were touching on earlier with milk and eggs, I've been speaking with a few other people, some of them in chat, in fact, about trying to develop a fully ethical dietary system, like only
Mhm.
eating things that are not alive, like
Yeah.
unfertilized eggs, for example. There's no ethical
Mhm.
problem with that because you're not actually killing a living thing. You're utilizing organic material from a living thing that is not itself alive, nor will it ever be alive if left to its own devices, because it's an unfertilized egg. Similar thing with milk. Like, you can make the case that you're taking milk away from the calf, but in more often than not, I don't know how many people are familiar with dairy farms. A cow gets pregnant, and then as long as you keep milking her every morning, she'll keep producing milk. The calf can be 10 years old and she will keep producing milk. So you're not taking milk from the calf.
So I need to step in here, because while what you're saying is in theory true, in the milk industry, I'm not talking.
I know factory farms are a whole different thing, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going, because in the milk industry, they tend to give hormones to the cows so that they will produce more milk. And there again is my issue. So I'm not just focused on killing or not killing, because, for instance, egg, while yes, it's unfertilized, it's gonna plop out whether I eat it or not. But the way that chickens, hens are being treated in the industry is fucking horrific.
There's a big
Which is
difference between
which is why
utilizing the material animals produce, which a normal farmer could do, and
exactly
the factory farming situation. Like, it's not to say that taking milk is always good. How you go about doing it really fucking matters. But also, Sapphire Light mentions a couple other things. Fruit is still alive. Milk contains living bacteria. Both true. However, with fruit, I want to point out that the fruit itself doesn't become a living thing. The fruit surrounds the seeds with the express purpose of getting animals to eat the fruit and spread the seeds for it. It's almost bribery. The plant is paying us. Hey, take this apple, eat the apple, and in return, spread my seeds around. Like, that's what it is literally for. And so I have no ethical issues at all about utilizing fruit. Just don't eat the seeds if you want to keep the deal with the plants.
Fruits doesn't have a what's the word? Okay, if I say brain, it's easier, but that's not the word I'm really, because I know there are certain types of creatures that are living things, living beings, that they don't have this cluster of neurons in the head like we do. It's more in the entire body.
Well, it's ishy. It's
There's
like, because
also
we perceive things in our brains. We feel pain with our brains, right? So, like,
yes,
when you get your ears pierced, it isn't your ears that feel the pain. They just send the pain signal, right? For example, or when you break an arm or whatever. And so we figure as long as we use anesthesia, there's a whole bunch of things. But, like, we get so focused on brains because that's where our consciousness lives. Is it wrong to cause harm to another person's body if they don't feel it? Right? It's not just about pain. It's not about pain the way we perceive it. It's about the harm itself, whether it causes pain or not. But sometimes you have to do something that might be considered harmful in order to do a greater good. For example, a surgery to remove an inflamed appendix. You're cutting the person open, but you're doing a greater good in the process. So where are these? There's so many multifaceted lines in this sort of thing. And when it comes to plants, it's true, there's no brain, but does that mean it's okay? Just because if they experience, which some studies seem to be indicating they do have some kind of experience, it's very different from how we experience things. So does that make it okay to ignore, or what? You know, there's questions we can't answer from our perspective with the knowledge we have right now, you know?
Exactly. And the way I see it, so for me, being a vegetarian is very easy. I liked eating meat when I did, but I'm not really giving anything up. It's such a small, and this is partly because of my having battled with anorexia and eating disorders for about 30 years. I don't have this. Oh, I know people who are like, I could not survive if my life would be so bleak and pointless if I couldn't have this type of cheese. I'm not like that. As long as I don't have a big hole in my tum tum, I'm happy. I have before, Soot feeds me, but before I met Soot, I could eat just pasta with like black pepper, pepper, for a year. The only reason I would switch was because I noticed my body eventually could eat any amount of pasta, and I would still lose weight and be hungry, and because it's like the body says,
wild. Because it's like pure carbs. Like, I get it that you'd have a nutrition deficiency from lacking protein and lipids and all the other things that we need, but like to just take on an infinite amount of pure carbs and not gain anything is fucking crazy to me.
Yeah, I think my entire metabolic system has become kind of whacked out of shape because of said anorexia. It's I will say it's much
I get
better.
it. I really, really do. Like when I was, as you know, because in part from advice from you, I was able to subvert things and derail myself off that train before it got really bad. But like when things were starting to get bad, I was reaching the point where I could eat like one sandwich on low calorie bread and gain 2 pounds. Like it's more than 8 times as much mass as the sandwich itself actually contained, because my body was so starved for certain nutrients that like once I had them, it snapped a whole bunch of other stuff together as quick as it could. And it was fucking crazy. But now that I've been having like at least one sandwich every day, and that incidentally is very good for your health, folks. Make sure you have a sandwich a day. Make that your religion, in fact. It's less significant. Like my body's gotten used to it, and I'm using real bread also. That's for financial reasons, not necessarily health reasons. The regular bread costs half as much as the low calorie bread, and it's like a 20 calorie difference. So fuck it.
That's yeah. You need to eat a fuck ton of bread for that to matter.
Exactly. I'm like, I am too poor for this bullshit. So you know. But now my body like doesn't care. I have a sandwich, I have a salad, and my weight, well, okay, in fairness, I can't say my weight is not fluctuating because I put my fucking scale away, and
Good.
I
Good.
tried to get it back out to do like a weekly check-in kind of thing, like my psychologist recommended. The batteries were dead. And I said, you know what? I'm not replacing the batteries. No.
No.
Not until I feel stable. You know?
I can I have to take a moment here and just say how happy I am to hear that. How what a seriously, I seriously, yeah, because the thing with scales, I had a scale. I bought it, or I got it as a present actually. Was keeping check on me. I got it because I argued that, oh, it will make things better, then I will see that I'm not gaining weight. No, that it doesn't work. I still have my scale actually got lost in the move, but before that I had a complete ban. I was allowed to use the scale maybe once a year, but only if I felt completely stable, and not just when it comes to food, because I don't really think about food in the way that I did as an anoretic. But I also know that when other things start to become unstable and I have a lot of anxiety or I'm depressed or whatever it might be, that's the first thing that tries to attack me again. It's like having a little devil on your shoulder that's just waiting to, like, oh yeah, but if you don't eat, everything will be better. It's because you're
and it doesn't ever fucking let up. Like you can't
Nope.
make the damn thing happy. Like if you
Nope.
gain 1 pound, you're a crushing disappointment. Your
Mhm.
ancestors look down on you with
Mhm.
shame. But if you lose half a pound, oh, you could have done better.
Yep.
You could be, it's never enough. It's
Nope.
the best you can do is to minimize the disappointment thing and be like, I suppose that's okay for today, something
Mhm.
like that. And oh, it's fucking infuriating. But yeah, that's why I'm like, the damn thing, it doesn't get to have control. But I also want to say, as my metabolism has started to stabilize more, I have no idea what my weight is doing, but my body's changing around. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. And
I think
granted, I'm doing a second puberty thing, so my body's going to change around anyway. But
exactly, and I think that is an important part of this in your case, and people in similar situations. You are going through and have gone through a huge change
several
in your
all at
life.
once.
Several, all at once, exactly. Which and it takes time for all of the system to acknowledge that, and at the same time, because so much about, and I did not, I went through decades of eating disorders and anorexia. I say eating disorders because not at all times would it have qualified for the diagnosis of anorexia. But eating disorders and anorexia, and I went through the treatment. I got free from anorexia, and it still took me another 5 to 7, 8 years before I tied together, because everyone in the that went to the treatment alongside me, they talked about having control and being able to control something. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not, I've never seen it as control. And it's not until, I mean, the past 5, 6 years that I've tied together that, damn it, deviant, that is control. It is feeling control of the environment. Oh, thank you, John.
Yeah, appreciate it. We've got a few people wandering off because one of the reasons I normally end the show around 90 minutes, depending on what time zone you're in, is because I don't know what it is that happens at this time, but a whole bunch of people wander off and
Me neither. And it seems to be some sort of secret because you have mentioned this before and asked, like, what is it that starts? And no one is saying anything. And it's like, what is this amazing stream that happens at this time that I'm not familiar with?
it's very
Like
it must
me at
be like
work and everybody.
Illuminati related or something. I don't know. It's pretty wild. But yeah,
Oh, it's
we
the
should wrap
lizard
up because
people.
people are getting antsy for going to do whatever the mysterious thing is that they
Yeah.
do. So thank you all so much for joining, for being here. Thank you, Deviant, for coming on. I hope you found our philosophical discussion today useful. Even if you don't have a eureka moment and suddenly discover a meaning in life, at least I hope you can think more about these ideas, these ethical systems in different ways than you might have been before, so that you can synthesize a greater understanding and end up living a happier life for it. Because that, to me, is the point. That's what flourishing means to me, you might say. And also thanks to Lil for sending gift memberships earlier and a super chat, which I lost track of. But I appreciate that very, very much. Helping the show, it helps. Like, we don't have time to get into the whole thing, but most of you know, like, things are not good for Ember financially, and I need to put like a thing on, like Cody at Evidence First has, where it just says right on the screen, support the stream, and have like a cash tag or something. There are links down at the bottom, but I realize people don't want to go to a website and then click on another link and then do another thing. They want to just do the thing. And so
Maybe you should get one of those with the dot, a QR code to the Patreon.
Like one of those?
Yeah. Yeah. Though I do realize that a lot of people don't.
I mean, I
a
do
lot of
have a
people, and
few.
for good reasons, don't use those. I don't use them if it's people I'm not familiar. I would trust you, absolutely, but if it was, yeah, they can. Don't go reading QR codes willy-nilly. It's a very bad thing.
Yeah, it should say what they're for, but also when you scan them, your phone should tell you what it connects to rather than just bring you there. But I digress. In any case, thank you everybody who's supported. It really, really helps. I cannot stress that. I realize a lot of people get all bitchy when Ember's like, oh, I need money, but I do. Like, paying rent is very helpful to producing more shows because I need somewhere to be to make shows from. So it helps a lot. But Lil sent $10. Thank you, Lil, and says there might be only one of you, but knowing you makes my world so much better. Also, dog-shaped Kip says hi.
Oh, Lily's
Yay,
so
dog
sweet.
thing. So that's. I know, Aunt Jur, if you're watching on your phone, you can't scan a QR code on the screen. I know it's an issue. Some software will also drop a link into the chat, but I don't think this software does. I don't know. It's very strange. But also, before we go, I wanted to show y'all, since I'm in this dress, the same dress I did my speech in Kentucky in. Like,
ooh,
I have a fucking waist.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
So I don't know what my weight is doing per se, but my shape is changing in a way that is like less upsetting to my dysphoria. So W there.
And I have to say, I don't care. Take it any way you want. You look good. You look good. And the dress is fucking beautiful. I've only seen like the top of it.
It's art. It's a cherry blossoms and bullfinches. It's a famous art piece.
Yeah.
And I love the shade of blue, and I love the cherry blossoms and the bullfinch. It's actually got on the back here, it's got the artists. It's very tiny.
Oh, yeah, but I can see
right there. It's I think it's a Chinese character. It may be Japanese. Forgive me, artist. I have forgotten which country you're from. But yeah, it's an I'm wearing a fucking painting, and it's velvet fabric, so it's so soft, and it just and it has pockets.
Oh,
it's the best thing ever. It's literally the best thing ever.
Oh, where can I get one? Where did you find it?
It's from a company called Black Milk Clothing. They make a lot of nerdy stuff, and the nerdy stuff is great too. It's a little on the expensive side, but when I got my hands on this, it was like a Valentine's Day present to myself. I was still working at the time, so I could afford it. Like, I wasn't well off, but I wasn't in imminent danger of not being able to pay my rent either. And on that note, holy shit, folks, it's been 6 months since I got a regular paycheck.
Oh,
this is not great. It's extremely not great. So if you would be so kind, I understand it's holidays. Everybody's in a tight spot. A lot of us are not doing well financially. But if you would be so kind as to hit the share button, I sincerely believe these videos will be of interest to more people, but the algorithm won't show them to more people. I need your help to get these out. And it's free. So I very much appreciate it. All right, enough capitalisming from me. Here. And tomorrow, Christmas mega stream starts later tonight, though. Adult Bible study. Keep an eye out for that. I think I've got it set for 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern time, but as you know, it may show up at any given moment. So that's later this evening. Christmas stuff starts, the mega streams. We're in our usual time slot, but there's other shows happening, so keep an eye out for that. And we're going to be doing holiday stuff. It'll be pretty neat. And we're going to get the science stuff isn't over. We're not done with that. We're only getting started, bitches. So yeah, thank you so much for coming. And as always, remember, you don't have to throw all your ethics out the window for the sake of obedience. To a person you've been bullied into obeying. You don't even agree with their ethical system. You've just been threatened with going to hell, whatever the case may be. You don't have to do all that. You can make your own decisions, live your own life, and be happy because you are better than religion. Toodles. Bye. Thanks to all our patrons and top-level members for November. Miranda, Karen Butcher, Jessica the Transmetal Alchemist, Robin Webster, Maya Adkisson, Jimmy Tux, Ian Chen, Lilith, Ember Lynn, The Barely Bearable Atheist, Eric Wander, Jason Jacoby, Godless Engineer, Jester, Lil of All Trades, Deviant Outcast, Kelly King, the Detroit Atheist Queen, The Mighty Filbert, and Secular Phalanist. And you can add your name here next month by signing up at patreon.com/betterthanember, or by joining Emberships here on YouTube at the Cinder level, which also includes all the custom emojis, tons of member-exclusive content, member-only live streams, and a bunch of other stuff. I deeply appreciate all the supporters who keep this channel going. Thank you all so much. Because of you, we're building a wonderful community that I'm very proud of.
Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now.